We'd like to thank everybody who's joining us here for this workshop. We have a couple announcements as everyone gets logged in. First, you'll notice this session allows you to have your cameras and mics on. We ask that you just follow the presenter's lead for when to do so. And next, if you'd like to ask a question during the session, please make sure and use the Q&A area to the right of the viewing window. I think we are ready to go ahead and get started. So I'm going to hand it over to our speakers today, Allison and Ed. Allison, all you.
Hey, thanks, Sam. I appreciate it very much. We are excited to be able to be here today to talk a little bit about some of the work that we're doing. And we are really happy to be sharing this new innovation. And I am joined with my friend Ed Hicks from Dell Technologies. Ed?
Thank you very much. A pleasure to be working with you and being able to present with you on this project. I'm out of the IoT safety, security, and artificial intelligence team with Dell Technologies, and I look forward to talking a little about what we've been doing together in my part of the presentation. Back to you, Allison. Good.
Yes. So we are here, and I'll start out by saying we are here because almost an accidental, pandemic, right? Nobody knew that we would be managing that over the last couple of years. And so what we're going to talk about today is something that has come out of that and led to what can be and will be a very innovative way to help us create networks of resiliency. So I'm going to start out just by talking a little bit about who I am and then about why Superbola Caring is in the middle of this. And so my name is Allison Reese, and I am with an organization that is called the Superbola Caring. And Superbola Caring sounds exactly like what it is. It was created over 30 years ago as a means to use the energy of that big game to tackle hunger. And 30 years ago, actually 1990, there was a youth group who took this upon themselves to use that energy to have a food drive for a local food charity. They invited others to participate, and now 30 years later, we have been doing this and created quite a network. We've raised over 170 million for local food charities, and how that works is that groups from around the country join together using that energy of a big game, and they host a food drive or a donation drive, have a soup supper, whatever they feel like that will work for them and that they get excited about. And when they do that, they donate all of the proceeds to a charity in their area that's tackling hunger. And then they come back and report to us what they did, thus us understanding a little bit better what the collective impact of this mission is. Our mission is to unite all communities to tackle hunger. And since 1990, from what we understand, and of course, not everyone reports what they do with our great campaign, but we have in our reporting over 12,000 food charities that have benefited over the years with this amazing event, and empowerment of over 300,000 groups, including over 2 million youth. So that's really the background of Superbola Caring and what we have been doing and our impact. We have a couple programs that we utilize every year that, and this year we've added a third one. So the most traditional is the one that I've been talking about, the Superbola Caring, where you use the energy of the actual big game to think about how we can use that energy to do something really good for our community. And the second one is called the Tackle Hunger Challenge. And that's a little newer, but it's also based on the traditional idea of Superbola Caring. What if everybody watching a game, specifically in thinking about the Super Bowl, and gave just $1 or 1 can of food to a local food charity? Well, what that would mean is quite a bit of food, right? Over 100 million in one day if you just think about the big game itself. And so the Tackle Hunger Challenge was born out of that, along with our partners at the NFL alumni, to help support not only our food charities, but also our schools, that many of them have food pantries or emergency foods resources inside the school and inside the athletic departments. So our NFL alumni have come alongside us, understanding the importance of caring for kids. And so we're excited to have that program as a part of what we do. All of these, by the way, are totally free. We provide tons of resources at our website, which is tacklehunger.org. And you can go to that website, see those resources. The third program, and the newest, is called the Tackle Hunger Map. And that is the technology we're going to be talking about today. And it really capitalizes on our 3 decades of experience now with helping and supporting local hunger relief, and gives an easy way to participate in a virtual food drive, if you will. So we started this program because of that and with that in mind. But that is just the beginning of it, really. It's really exciting what we're working on right now, and we're glad to be able to share it with you all. So about 1.5 years ago, when the pandemic hit and we all saw those pictures of the food banks and the lines of cars who were in desperate need of getting a little help during these lockdowns, got a call from a friend, and that's who we're going to talk to here in a minute, from Ed, who was working with some federal resources, and asked a very specific question. Can we help to be able to tell where and what local food charities need right now? All right, so that was the basic question that came to me. And this is what came out of that. From that, we were able to create a very simple yet significant way to create a way to find this information out. So using our grassroots movements, right, and our data that we had of over 12,000 food charities, we conceived of an idea of creating a map where you can see where local food charities are, and you can see what they need, and you can donate directly to those charities right through our map, allowing charities to both update their information and also participate in this for free of charge. This map made a lot of sense as a virtual extension of our mission. If you really think about uniting communities to tackle hunger, and then we're dealing with a pandemic on top of that, which we're limiting the people who wanted to participate in Super Bowl of Caring or any kind of food charity collections, this was a great way for us to be able to fulfill that mission in a very virtual and safe way at the time. This is a picture of what the map looks like right now. And the objective, of course, of this was to really be able to pinpoint where these charities are and the real-time needs of what those charities were, which was the original question that brought this whole idea to fruition. Really, our experience over the last 30 years has told us that most charities, don't have time to reach out to their community members, whether they're churches or whether they're schools, who could potentially help them and be a support network to them. Most of the food charities I talk to are too busy just trying to find the food and feed the people that are walking through their doors. And so because of that, groups didn't know where local food charities were feeding people. Churches that we would talk to, faith-based groups, would say, oh, I didn't realize that 2 miles away from here, there was a food pantry that was feeding people. We should be helping them. That was one of the primary motivations and objectives from my perspective as we started this initiative. This creates an ability to be able to see where those food charities are, and they're all geolocated. So when you, wherever you are in this country, goes to this map, it's going to pull up the charities that are around you. Some of the features of this map, and I'm going to talk quite a bit more extensively about this. I just want to give you kind of the basics. We're trying to put this in a little bit of a chronology so you understand this to the fullest extent. It's really cool. The map at this point includes over 25,000 food charities, and their needs, we're working to get them to provide their real-time status using our Apple system. And our Apple system, basically, what happens is the food charities get an email from us if we have a contact email for them. They get an automatic email that says, tell us what your current status is. You click on one of the buttons that looks just like this in that email, and it automatically updates the map with that status. You can imagine what that feature, for us, it was the ability for us to share this information, and Ed's going to explain a little bit more of that here in a minute, but it goes far beyond that. The other feature here is that when you click on that charity, you're going to get more specifics about that charity, where they are, their website, their phone number if we have one, and then how you can either host a food drive, learn about how to do that, but also you can donate directly through that map. And again, charities don't pay anything to be a part of this. We want to, just like Super Bowl of Caring is every year, we want this to be a catalyst for engagement and building awareness of the importance of knowing where these food charities are. So those are the basic features of what we have. We partnered with this, as I said, because of one question that came up to us during the pandemic. And this was a real collaborative effort with many partners that include Dell and Mr. Ed Hicks, who's going to talk to you a little bit about why we started this, what we were using this information for at the beginning of this story, and then how that evolves into what we're doing and what we're thinking about and the uses of this map and its data today. So Ed, I'm going to go ahead and let you talk, and I'll advance the slides as you go.
Fantastic, Allison. Thank you very much. And it's been an amazing story to get here. To your point, we were pulled in. Actually, it was interesting because we started working with the COVID response teams early on. We started actually in January, late December, early January of 2020. And one of the things that they were concerned about was, we were seeing a pandemic potentially spreading across the globe. And the question was, what would we be able to do about it? And what would happen if we started looking at different options, such as, potentially locking down a complete society, which had been talked about and actually had been partially done over in China, and what would be the impact? So fortunately for us, I work on the federal side for Dell. One of the team members that we had worked with had actually done a lot of modeling around what would happen if you did that literally during 2007, when we were looking at the bird flu potentially moving across the globe as a pandemic. So the modeling had actually started being done back in 2007 under the Bush administration. So they planned for that, and they had built a lot of capability around what ifs and what if scenarios. So we were able to start to work with that team, and then the Joint Artificial Intelligence Center, which is part of the federal government's artificial intelligence group, found out about some of the work that we had done and brought us on board early March and said, how can we start to look at what we will do? If you remember, we all heard, 15 days to stop the spread. But what happens if we do that? What is going to be the impact to the network? What is going to be the impact to the supply chain? We started looking at some of these questions. What's the zip code specifically for us on our team? We'll have shortages of food if we start sending people home and the supply chain gets broken. And so that's actually, where we initiated the project. There was literally very little information out there on where the food charities were. We needed the National Guard, the military, the state and local governments to know the dot on the map. Where is that physical food charity, and who's the point of contact if we want to be able to very quickly get food into that location? And so that was one of the questions that were brought to our team. And then further on, how could we utilize that information to, expect if we had a natural disaster, which ultimately did happen right in the middle of all of that. And I'll talk a little bit about that in the future. But how could we take that information? How could we provide artificial intelligence and machine learning to the National Guard to the state and local governments, to the federal government, to the USDA, to FDA, et cetera, to get resources and get food where it needed to go. Part of what came out of that program was something called the Food to Table program, or Farm to Table program, where we needed to be able to, instead of, trying to I'd literally just throw tons of food to waste that was sitting on a farm. It was basically, let's get that packaged and get it out to these locations. And we were working very closely with organizations to be able to get that out there. The other part of that was, how do we actually take that information that we're getting and develop a food map, a food situation interface for the Jake, utilizing something called Esri, which I'll show you the maps on that, to be able to identify where we were going to see needs based on what was happening in the stores. Remember, I'm sure you do, or you couldn't buy toilet paper. A part of the reason for that, and most people don't realize, is that there was a commercial line of business for food, i.e. your hotels, your restaurants, et cetera, your office buildings, where people go through and they buy their goods. So those are packaged a certain way. And then there's another side of that world, which is basically your shopping centers and such. So we were able to sit down and look at the supply chain that was feeding those shopping centers and such, and start to really look at what we could find out what was being sold through, and then divert the packaged goods that would be for a hotel or for another organization or food stores like a restaurant or such, to those locations. And that's actually where we were doing a lot of work behind the scenes. It's really neat to see how that was done. But we developed an artificial intelligence algorithm that allowed us to start to look at what that would look like, where we start to see securities and insecurities in food, and then start to predict that out for 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks, and ultimately start to be able to minimize that and then see the impact of what we were doing. So it was a very critical step of the equation, was to understand what was being brought and sold. But one of the biggest pieces that was missing was a database of where the physical food pantries, food banks, and food closets literally were at. We had no idea. So we didn't know how to create a distribution arm to get that out there. And so we were fortunate enough, through a partnership of Dell's, to find out with one of our people who had worked with us during other disaster recovery solutions, the ability to basically reach out and start working with Allison and her team. And it started out as something very simple. She had a spreadsheet with all the information sets of all of the clients that they had worked with. Fantastic way to begin, but it was really somewhat of an incomplete list of what we needed. And so we started working with her and said, okay, this is what our needs are. We want to be able to not only note that these are a dot on the map, but we need to make sure that they're validated, that they're actually a dot on the map that exists today, and that we have contact information for it. Not a problem. Her team over the Super Bowl of Caring jumped to the equation, or to the challenge, and ultimately started getting a team of volunteers to go ahead and clean up that data for us. And then as we started to expand it out, I was okay, so now we know that we've got somewhere between 10 and 12 thousand sites out there. What can we find out about those sites? What do we need to know about food insecurity? We want to be able to know, hey, do they need perishable goods? Do they need non-perishable goods? Are they good to go? Do they not need anything? Do they need volunteers? Do they need everything, or do they need nothing? And so that's where we started looking at what you saw on that other part of the map, information that we could actually work with. And it was, like you said, very simple initially, but what it basically said was, it gave us the opportunity to sit down and look at what we were seeing and be able to get a real dot on the map, and also a real way of actually determining and moving food through the system. So one of the final pieces they said was, let's go ahead and take that information that we've got, and I'll show you in the next slide, and actually layer in information around hurricanes, because we know that we're getting into hurricane season. We know that we've got a pandemic, we've got food shortages. We need to be able to get people potentially out of locations. And so we ran a scenario, and go to the next slide, where we looked at where those dots on the maps were. We wanted to be able to look at those vulnerable areas that were out there, and then identify where those potential locations would be. And you're actually seeing, this is the Esri map that we provided to the federal government, that said, here we had a week before a higher level of product, but we're actually seeing a decrease in those products over time in different locations inside that zip code through shopping centers. And then here's that specific zip code level that we want to be able to drill down into. We see food insecurity there. We want to be able to go ahead and get food there based on the local dots on the map that you're seeing right now. Those little gray areas are the food banks and food pantries that were populated by the map. And as Allison said, they're geolocation points. And so we were able to take that information and say, okay, fantastic. Now we've got those. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. Let's go ahead and layer in that information around a potential, hurricane and evacuation routes. Which ones of those hurricane evacuation routes are going to be critical for people who are in those food insecure locations to be able to generate and be able to survive and be able to, get resources, or if there is a direct point on this, and this was actually a model based on a previous hurricane track, if there is an impact in this location, what food pantries, food banks, locations can we utilize to be able to get resources, volunteers, etc., into that location as quickly as possible to stabilize the area. So it was actually kind of fortuitous that we had done that, because ultimately that's exactly what happened. We ended up in the next slide having that exact situation happen with Hurricane Laura. And if you note, there's actually two separate hurricane tracks. One goes across the screen, basically from right to left, and then there's one that's coming up through the bottom. So there's a tropical depression as well as a hurricane coming through at the same time. Now, that has happened several times in history. It happened to us here in Florida quite a few times. So we were expecting, kind of the worst. And what we ended up doing was really drilling down into that area and said, okay, where are the food banks? Where are the food pantries? If we look at, flooding, which we saw, or we see severe wind damage, or we see, a complete loss of infrastructure, where can we gather our resources to be able to get those resources to those locations very quickly? So we started working directly with Allison as this hurricane became, more and more of a threat and got closer and closer. And we started staging prior to all of this. And then we worked with the teams over at FEMA. We worked with the National Guards at the state and local level. We worked with literally thousands upon thousands, if not close to 100,000 volunteers to be able to say, okay, so let's mobilize. Let's go ahead and take care of this, national disaster that's actually unfolding in front of our eyes, and be able to get ahead of that. So it was a very coordinated effort between agencies as well as local government, as well as National Guard and the volunteer organizations. And we were able to take the maps, and we were able to take the information sets that we had. We were able to mobilize those forces and work directly with the governor of the state of Louisiana, the state and local resources, the federal government, FEMA side. We were getting reports from FEMA, providing them to Allison and her teams. And it was literally like this collaborative effect. And it was so effective that we were able to minimize the amount of impact to the people on the ground. And ultimately, we're able to start to really get those resources out there within hours and days versus days and weeks. And when we say that, I mean, we really were able to cut down something that usually took between 3 and 4 weeks. We were able to minimize that amount of paperwork and the ability to mobilize forces down to 3 days. And so it really stabilized the area on the ground so well that the next hurricane that hit, which I'm not exactly sure of the name of it, but it hit Louisiana again. They already had everything in place today to be able to go ahead and respond very quickly. So it was something that it actually had some legs as well. Not only did we do it initially there, but the next few hurricanes that hit Louisiana, and even some of the responses that were occurring this year during the more present hurricane season, we were able to leverage that resource as well to be able to get in there and start to work with it. A very powerful use of artificial intelligence and human intelligence on the ground, and it gave us the ability to really demonstrate the capability of what we could do with the Super Bowl of caring in a way that wasn't just putting food onto a table in a specific location, but basically gave us the ability to respond to a real-time incident. So I'll pass it back to Allison for further discussions, and I'm looking forward to any questions that you have.
Yeah, thanks, Ed. And one of the things I would add there was the fact that you see in this slide, it talks about how a collaborative effect was happening at that time. And it was so interesting to see that we could be in communication with the National Guard and look at things from a different lens using this data to be able to really help them make better decisions in real time. And so this was really the very infant stage of the Tackle Hunger Map. And we were using just basically the data that we had already within our relationships from groups, from charities who had benefited from a Super Bowl caring campaign at one time or another over the lifetime of our organization. So that was really the beginning. And that was the beginning because we were building the infrastructure behind the map while this was going on. We had the data, we just didn't have it yet set up. So now, well, how it helps. We know how it helped there, and we're still able to share that information in these channels and through this data share that we have with Dell and with these organizations that are able to utilize this information. But we also see and have been able to experience some of the other potential and real innovative ways in which this map can help us make better decisions to solve these problems, which we all know it's not about having enough food. We have enough emergency food to feed people. It's a matter of how we get that emergency food to the place it's needed at the right time. And that's what this map, from its very beginning, was able to do and is able to do today. And we're working really hard to get a lot of awareness behind this map. And we're a small organization, so we're working on that every day to get awareness behind this, to get charities to report their status. It'll take 2 seconds to do so. But we want to share a little bit. And the other presenter, Kim Soller, I think she's listening, but she had an emergency in her family and could not be seated in front of you as she hoped. But she's a food charity, an independent food charity, who is seeing the benefits of this. So we want to share some of the things we're seeing and we're working on right now that really we see as the solutions beyond just the pandemic. So the first one is this, and we've already been talking about that. It's easy to report a status if you're a charity, and we all know, because as I shared, charities don't have time to do almost anything besides what they're there to do, to meet their mission to feed people who are hungry, but they have to have resources to do that. And many, many times, charities are helping each other, but the only way they know that another one of their cohort, one of their colleagues, a food charity in their area, is struggling is by word of mouth. Well, this map provides a picture. Here's where another food charity is that's struggling. Here is, I can click this button and pose the fact that we're in critical situations. We may have to turn away people who are hungry because we don't have the resources we need to feed people. Well, if we're able to report that, then at the same time, then resources can be allocated to get the help where those charities are that need the help the most, whether it's charity helping charity, whether it's businesses, whether it's churches and faith groups, or whether it's state, local, federal governments who can help and put resources where they're needed most. That's for every food charity that's feeding people, and all of them are on our map. If you're a charity that's feeding somebody, then you can be on the map. And again, we don't charge charities to be a part of this. We just want them to be there. We want to do that. Second solution, we see this as an awesome opportunity to represent all food charities in one location. Look, as Ed said, they were looking for data on food charities and they couldn't find any. Feeding America has a map of 202 food banks, which is awesome. But that doesn't tell you where people are on the ground every day feeding people. It doesn't show that. So the depth of understanding the whole system of the National Food Charity Database is something that many organizations right now I can think of that we're working with together to build this database set with the idea that once a charity updates it for me, it can be updated for whomever needs that information, whether it's Google or whether it's Hunger Free America or whether it's the Alliance to End Hunger. Any one of those can have access to that information, and we can make sure that we have good information. This map, again, when you go to the map, it geolocates to the place of the user. So the charities that are at the top are the ones that are nearest to the person who's logging in. So that's really important, we feel like, in order to make sure that all of our charities can be seen. And we know that that is a struggle based on some of the research that's been done recently, especially to a lot of our smaller food charities, like our food closets and our food cupboards. Another real solution that we see, that we have seen coming out of this, is the picture of the technology that we provide. Again, we provide not only that representation, but also if one chooses, they can donate directly through our map to those food charities. Food charities can set it up to where when somebody donates through the map, it goes directly to their bank account. They also, if they don't do that, what it does is it rolls through Super Bowl of Caring, and then we send a check to that food charity within 30 days. That said, there's no cost to those food charities to do that. What we have found, even more so recently, because we get feedback from these small charities. They say most of them are run by a small staff. They've got volunteers. Most of them have very limited technology capacity, but also support. That's one of the reasons we're working with TechSoup, whom I know most of you know. We're working with TechSoup to help them provide some of those resources that our smaller food charities need. At the same time, our map provides online access to donations, for instance, that they may not be able to do any other way. If a charity only has a Facebook page, it's pretty hard for them to have that form of representation in an online forum. So that's something we're seeing that is valuable to our to food charities. The interesting thing is we built that in there as a means to the Super Bowl of Caring original campaign. If you think about what Super Bowl of Caring stands for, uniting all communities to tackle hunger. So we built that in, seeing that as an opportunity to add that virtual donation platform that's the same for everyone, one place, simple for people to navigate, be able to be used in multiple different situations. We do a big event with Nexstar Media where people can call in, enter their zip code, find out where food charities are and make donations. It's so simple and yet so significant. If I go back to the founders' original conception of Super Bowl of Caring, it was this idea that this campaign could be so simple and yet so significant to the charities that receive those donations, and they don't have to do anything to receive them except for keep doing what they're doing. It's the coldest time of the year when we do Super Bowl of Caring, and it's usually after the holidays. So most of our food charities are so happy to get those resources. It's the same thing with the Tackle Hunger Map and what it can do. So the last, and definitely not the least solution that we're seeing come out of this first year in the infancy of this map, is really an exciting one. And that is an idea of community resiliency. And we knew this word had to come back out. But the idea that our public hospital systems, they recognize that 80 to 90% of the time, medical outcomes of people who are clients of our food charities have nothing to do with medical intervention. What they have to do with is getting adequate nutrition to those people on a consistent basis. And so social workers have been sending these patients out using a static list. that they're given, just a piece of paper that says, here's the charities that you can send them to. Those social workers don't know whether or not those food charities are overwhelmed. And certainly because of the pandemic, most of our food charities don't know when they're going to be overwhelmed, but it's happening. And when it happens, those patients may be turned away. And when they're turned away, they're likely not going to come back. And that's when the social workers see those people again in the hospital with that chronic illness because they haven't been able to get the resources they need. That's something that this map, with again, the very simple interaction from our food charities, these social workers are going to be able to see where those food charities might be that might not be able to help that patient right at that moment. And so then they can steer them to another location that can. The important thing here is that we want to make sure that, as our saying goes, no one goes without soup in their bowl. And this map with these solutions have the ability to do those things with a really simple interaction, but it is something that we can't do for ourselves. We have to get our food charities to help us with that. So that's the main solutions. Ed, did you have anything else about those solutions that you wanted to add in there before I go on to just one or two more slides, and then we'll let people ask questions should they wish to?
No, I think, I mean, you've covered it brilliantly. Like I said, it was one of these, the other things that I can look at is, as you were putting together all of that data, there's more than just the rich data that is what the what the food banks are needing. There's the ability inside that database to actually drill down into more information sets that we can provide out. My team at Dell has been working very closely with a lot of the artificial intelligence teams out there to basically protect that information and protect information sets, and then be able to bring that into like a marketplace type of thing. But that rich data is definitely something that would be beneficial for coordinating between, not only the Super Bowl of caring for food, but also quite a few other potential organizations, states and local governments that might be able to utilize that data to really start to do homegrown projects to be able to support their local resources as well. So I think that's pretty much where I'm at. Thank you though. So.
Yeah, so that kind of leads me right into this last slide. So thank you, Ed. That was very eloquent of you. So one of the things that we're really working on now, it's a couple big things, actually. One is to really start having those conversations with state, local, federal, government, and corporate entities that are interested in this community resiliency thing. Because if we have, and I'm just going to put this out there because this is really what we're talking about. If you have a map in your city where you can pinpoint, and a charity can pinpoint very easily that they're in need, that they're in specific need, and that information can then be disseminated to partners in that community who can help, and that need can be fulfilled quickly, then we don't have these issues anymore. Community resiliency, flourishing, those are things that can happen because we're making sure that the resources that we have are getting to the right place at the right time. And that's incredibly important and simple because we have this technology that has never really been implemented in any set of charity groups such as this, to where we can look at this from a national perspective, but we can also look at it from a very localized perspective. So that's one of the things that I'm working on now. And we are, when I say you think we're a big organization, no, Super Bowl of Caring has a staff of 1, which is me, and I have about 3 part-time employees and 2 AmeriCorps volunteers that work very hard at what we do. But we are really small, and of course, always looking for partners to help us to get this moving faster and to grow it and to get more traction behind it. We're continuing to build this national database and maintaining it. So I have one of my AmeriCorps Vistas, that's their job, is to work on maintenance of that database and to continue to grow it. And then, of course, we're constantly trying to get more food charities to report their status and to get that email and literally just click that button, because that's as simple as it is. And then, of course, we're always working on building awareness and to create donations for those food charities to continue to do what they need to do to meet their own missions through that Tackle Hunger map and through the overall arching Super Bowl of Caring mission. So again, I go back to the simple yet significant. Nobody's ever really tried this before, where they have a map where you can see in real time what's happening in that ecosystem. If we have that and we have good, reliable data, then we're going to be able to do much better at being able to fulfill those resources. Right now, we have like I said, we have about 25,000 food charities in the map currently. We think that there's probably between 80 and 90,000 food charities out there. We have another list that we're about to plug in to the map database as we have the time to do so. And then we're always working with coalitions. If you have coalitions and you want to make sure that your charities are in that, we would love to talk to you about that. So those are kind of next steps for us. And Ed, did you have any next steps that you're working on? Oh, you're on mute.
Yeah, it wouldn't let me get him off mute. Yeah, actually, no, we're looking at obviously continually supporting this, the process through not only local charity work that we're doing with the Super Bowl of Caring, but also last year we were able to go through and do. I think you did the telethon. I don't know if they were planning on doing that again, but definitely would like to be able to support on that as well. And then, as we said, we're looking with other partners that we're doing other work with our Dell Giving and our Dell Sustainability group to be able to support other organizations that can tie into this. So it's really been a big initiative for us to be able to support the local communities utilizing this platform and working with the team.
Yes. So. Well, so, and one of the things that that we're also working really closely on, he was talking about a telethon. We work with Nexstar Media in 13 markets in the West Coast, and we're going to continue to do that this year. We're excited about that, adding in a more robust phone bank to help support that, and continue to build partnerships to help increase the usage of the map, not just during the Super Bowl of Caring timeframe. So that is really, in the nutshell, what we're working on. If anyone has any questions, you can, I would suppose, Sama, can they unmute and ask a question if they wish?
Yes, absolutely. They sure can. Everybody feel free to unmute yourselves and ask a question, or you can put it in the chat.
Either one. Yep. And Kim, I think Kim's on here. Kim, can you unmute? You can share if you were still on. I know she had an emergency in her family.
Yes, I am here. I would just like to tell everybody we love the Super Bowl of Caring map. We are a nonprofit, and actually through the COVID, we became a food pantry. So we were able to see the other pantries or areas that needed food and help them also. So it works wonderful, everybody. It's easy, it's simple, it's a great way to find out the need in your community and local areas. And I support them 100%.
Yeah, one of the things that we certainly have noticed is that we've got a great number of food charities that are popping up and that will email us or will put themselves on the map that are in rural areas. And what they'll tell us is that, we've never been asked to be connected to something like this. And certainly we're excited to have some representation. Most of these are completely relying on donations from people in their community. Some of them are in food desert areas. And that all is information that Ed and his team are using to really help understand where some hot spots are in our country that might be vulnerable areas, more vulnerable areas, where perhaps we have spots, of course, all over the country that are only these rural sections that don't have grocery stores nearby, that are completely dependent on perhaps a church in the region. It's a poor area. We have other places in our country that literally the churches in other states are helping to support food charities because they don't have enough resources in their specific region to be able to provide for that. So the ability to use a geography map like we have, the geolocations, makes a big difference. So
yeah, and I was going to say on that point, I mean, there are so many food deserts that were created by the fact that just a lot of businesses went out of business, right? I mean, the ability to distribute food in a lot of locations is no longer there. This really has been very helpful to be able to identify, getting people into the nearest location if there is that food desert. And it was very prevalent mid to late last year, and it's going to take some time for this economy to, get buildings back up and restaurants and food sources in some of these food deserts. So it's still very, very critical that we move forward with this. So.
We're excited because, can you hear me, you guys?
Yes.
Hi. We're very excited because through our nonprofit small organization, we were able to reach 35 counties that would come into our food pantry, and we were able to, over COVID, distribute over 18 million meals and snacks. And that was our pantry because we receive food in from all over the United States. So yes, we rely solely on donations, but through God's grace, we did it. So we were very happy about this map, and we were able to help so many. So thank you very much.
Yes, any other questions? And I believe my email address is here. If you want this presentation or if you want more information, you can certainly let me know. Ed would be happy to share more about what he's doing, and Kim as well. And all of us, our information is right there for you, and our phone numbers as well. So we're happy to have there. Okay, there's one question here. Are there plans to provide real-time open/closed info for the food pantries on the map so people can see where they may be able to get food assistance right away, right now or nearby? Okay, yes, we do get that information about open/closed information, and we do have that when it's closed on our map. That pin is not going to show up necessarily. Okay, so, but we do collect that information, and we have a database that the data that we're collecting in the back end of this portal is even more in depth than what we're showing in our map, because our map has one mission, and that mission for us, besides being able to, build this resiliency, is to have a portal to be able to donate. So the information that you're getting in our view, in the view on our map, is very generic information. Now, information from the database itself includes much more than that. And we partner with some food pantry finders that are national in orientation, ones with ending hunger in America. And they're utilizing more of that data for their apps because they're more targeting people who are hungry and providing that information for them, if that makes sense. In addition, we really see the opportunity with this, the back end and the portal where charities can log in. Charities can log in. They can log in and they can update their information. They can update their hours. They can see when a donation comes through our map. They can see who made that donation, and they can download that information because it's not our donor. it's the food charities donor. So they can pull that information down if they get a check from us. They can also, we're hoping eventually to be able to put a forum in there to where food charities can have a conversation ongoing about some of the real challenges that they face day to day. We also understand that that's a real need, and we'd like to be able to support that need as we move forward. So those are some of the things that we're looking ahead to the future on. So I hope that kind of makes sense to answer your question. We're also going to add a button that says, "Are you looking for food?" that will actually redirect a person to the food pantry finder. Because again, the mission of our map is to get help for food charities. The mission of food pantry finders are really to get the people the help they need. So I hope that helps answer that question. Anything else? Yeah. Who is doing the food pantry finder? There's several. There's one that's ending hunger in America, and then Food Finder. Our friend Jack Griffin with Food Finder. There's several though that do a really good job of that. Google is working on that with Food for Good. We're really encouraging significant maintenance of the data, because the last thing we want, and we know it happens, is that people who are looking for food Google it. And when they Google it, they only get about a 30% shot of actually finding a place that they can get food. So we want, we want to change that. When somebody is reaching out and they're in that vulnerable position and they need food, the first place they call, they should be able to find it. So we're really trying to work on that maintenance of that data and helping other groups who want to provide that information to make sure that it's good data. And that if it's a location that's on their map, that it's a location that anyone can go and get food. Because, what good is it to me to know where a summer feeding site is for a child? It's not going to help me get food. So at any rate, those are conversations we're trying to have with some of these different groups that are all working on that. Hunger Free America is also has a food finder on their website as well, along with their hotline. And they utilize our data. We share our data together so that they have as much access as they can to that good information. So anything else, Ed, from your side? I think those are the only two questions I have so far, unless somebody has something else.
I think that's it. Those are very good questions, definitely.
Yeah. And again, you've got our email addresses. Feel free to email us. I'm here because of a movement to help unite all communities to tackle hunger. So that's my work. And that's what I want to do. And we want to make this map as great as it can be. And that is to support the entire network of emergency food charities. So that's where we're doing, and we're happy to be partnering with the Alliance to End Hunger, who additionally is interested in finding whatever solutions we can find that can help support this entire network.
Very well.
So,
Awesome.
Sam, is there anything else we need to do?
That is it. Thank you so much, Allison and Ed. That was a fantastic session. Thank you for the great questions. There's still a few minutes left of workshops. So if you'd like to join one of the other workshops, you can go on the left-hand side of your screen on the navigation bar, click workshops, and scroll through any of the ones that are currently happening and select that. If not, they will be wrapping up in about 5 minutes. So you can feel free to take 5 minutes away for yourself as well. And then up next after that our closing session that you won't want to miss. So to rejoin the session, you're going to want to click main stage in the navigation bar to the left just before it begins in about 5 minutes. And that concludes our workshop. To exit the session, please click on the red phone icon at the bottom of your screen now and select to leave. And I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Thanks again, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks, Sam.
Cheers.
Thanks all.
Bye, Ed.
Bye-bye.